He walked into the courthouse certain he would only lose a marriage, but what he found there shook everything he believed about himself. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post new content every day. Now, back to the story. Ryan Miller adjusted the cuff of his Italian shirt for the third time in 5 minutes, a habit he'd developed whenever anxiety threatened to breach the wall of control he had built over 42 years. The mirror in the private elevator of the Midtown Manhattan office building reflected the image he had cultivated. With surgical precision, a custom-tailored charcoal grey suit, a wine-colored tie, impeccable English shoes, and an expression that revealed absolutely nothing. It was this mask that had made him the owner of the third-largest hotel chain in North America. And it would be this mask that would finally get him out of a marriage that should have ended long ago. His lawyer was waiting on the ground floor, reviewing documents in a leather briefcase that cost more than most Americans' monthly salary. Henry Cole was known for resolving complicated situations discreetly and efficiently, which was exactly what Ryan needed. There was no room for drama, media exposure, or complications that could affect the business of Miller Hotels International. Just a clean, quick, and final dissolution of marriage. Everything's ready, Ryan. The hearing should last an hour at most. Claire signed all the preliminary documents, so it's just a matter of formalizing it before the judge. Henry snapped the briefcase shut with a sharp click that echoed off the lobby's marble floor. Are you sure she won't try to reverse the agreement? Ryan didn't hesitate. Claire's too smart for that. She knows that dragging this out would only hurt us both. He paused, looking out at the bustling avenue through the building's massive glass windows. Besides, she's already moved on with her life. She works as a freelance translator. She's financially independent. There's no reason to complicate things. It was true, at least in part. For the last 18 months since they had unofficially separated, Ryan knew that Claire was living in a rented apartment in Astoria, Queens, a middle-class neighborhood where she had grown up before marrying him. She had resumed her career as a translator, something she had given up when they married 7 years earlier. According to the discreet reports he received, because as much as he tried to deny it, he still cared, she seemed to be doing well. Independent, even relieved perhaps. The drive to the Manhattan family court was silent, broken only by the constant calls Ryan answered in the back of the armored BMW. A merger in Miami, a labor issue in Chicago, the delayed opening of a resort in Aspen. The empire he had built demanded constant attention, and that was precisely what gave him peace of mind. Work was predictable. Relationships were not. His marriage to Claire had started like a modern fairy tale. She, with a literature degree from NYU, the daughter of a small business owner from the Lower East Side, intelligent and determined. He, the heir of a traditional New York family who had turned a small inn in the Hamptons into the seed of an international hotel empire. They met at a lecture on sustainable tourism at the university where she taught English to executives. Ryan was fascinated by her eloquence, by the way she articulated complex ideas without losing her natural ease. Claire was impressed by his strategic vision, his ability to turn dreams into concrete plans. The first few years were intense. Claire accompanied Ryan on business trips, helped review international contracts, and attended corporate dinners where her intelligence and natural charm opened doors that family influence sometimes couldn't. They were a perfect, complementary team, until the company's exponential growth began to consume all of Ryan's available hours. His absences multiplied. Meetings that stretched late into the night, trips that lasted for weeks, weekends dedicated entirely to work. Claire tried to adapt, to create her own routine, to resume personal projects. But the emotional distance grew in proportion to their financial success. When she mentioned plans to have children, Ryan always asked for a few more months, a few more projects completed, more stability in the international markets. There was always a reason to postpone, and Claire gradually stopped bringing it up. The separation happened almost bureaucratically. There were no screams, dramatic accusations, or epic confrontations. One morning, Claire simply said she could no longer live as a shadow of herself, waiting for scraps of attention between two meetings. Ryan, engrossed in the acquisition of a resort chain in the southeast, agreed that it was probably for the best. They were different people with different priorities. The divorce would just be the formal recognition of something that had already ended. At least that's what Ryan believed, as the car pulled up in front of the courthouse. Henry checked the documents one last time, muttered some last-minute instructions on how to behave before the judge, and they headed into the grey building that housed the family court. Ryan walked with the same precision he used when entering a negotiation room. Firm steps, a neutral expression, his mind focused on the final objective. The hearing room was smaller than he expected, with faded cream-colored walls and a simple wooden table, where the magistrate was organizing stacks of files. Judge Paul Mendoza, a man in his 60s with a graying beard and reading glasses, greeted the lawyers with the formality the situation required. Ryan checked his watch. 9 o'clock in the morning, sharp. Claire was late, which wasn't like her. In fact, obsessive punctuality was one of the traits they shared. "We'll wait a few more minutes," the judge said, flipping through the file. The respondent confirmed her attendance. Ryan nodded, discreetly checking messages on his phone. A crisis at the hotel in New Orleans, a problem with suppliers in San Diego, 3 international investment proposals awaiting analysis. The world kept spinning, demanding decisions, while he was settling the final details of a phase of his life he already considered over. That's when the door opened. The first sound was a soft cry, followed by another and then a third. Ryan looked up, and the world stopped. Claire entered the room pushing a modified triple stroller, the kind that looks like a small bus for babies, where 3 small children were nestled side by side. She was wearing a simple navy blue blouse, jeans, and white sneakers, her brown hair pulled back, in a practical ponytail. She looked tired, with faint dark circles that her light makeup couldn't completely hide, but there was something else. A fierce determination that Ryan had never seen before. "I apologize for the delay, Your Honor," she said, positioning the stroller so she could keep an eye on all 3 babies at once. It wasn't easy getting them all organized to leave the house. The silence in the room was deafening. Judge Mendoza lowered his glasses, Henry dropped a pen, and Ryan felt as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. The 3 babies, 2 boys and a girl, from what he could tell by their outfits, were about the same size, clearly siblings, and when the little girl opened her eyes to look directly at him, Ryan saw his own reflection in miniature. Emerald green irises, strong eyebrows, the characteristic shape of the Miller family's face. "Claire," he managed to articulate, his voice hoarser than usual. "What? Who are—" She faced him with an expression that mixed exhaustion, determination, and something that could be interpreted as a challenge. "They're your children, Ryan, Gabriel, Sophia, and Ben, triplets. They were born 4 months ago." Ryan's world collapsed, not metaphorically, literally. His legs gave out, his vision blurred for a few seconds, and he had to lean on the table to keep from falling. 4 months. Triplets. His children. "That's not possible," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone in the room. "You didn't tell me. I didn't know—" "I tried to tell you." Claire's voice was firm, without resentment, just factual. 3 times. The first time you were flying to Miami for a meeting that couldn't be postponed. The second time you said it wasn't a good time because the company was undergoing an international audit. The third time I had already decided I was going to raise them on my own. Judge Mendoza cleared his throat. "Well, this is obviously new information that significantly alters the proceedings. I'll need to suspend the hearing so you can discuss this and reorganize the petition based on this new family situation." Ryan couldn't stop staring at the children. Gabriel, who seemed to be the most active, waved his little hands in the air as if trying to catch something invisible. Sophia was sleeping soundly, her fine brown hair forming small damp curls on her forehead. Ben observed everything around him with a seriousness that was impressive for a 4-month-old, and all of them, absolutely all of them, had the green eyes of the Millers. 4 months, he repeated, trying to process the information. "You went through a pregnancy with triplets alone. You had 3 kids alone. You've been raising them alone for 4 months. Not completely alone. My mum helps when she can, and I have a very kind neighbor who gives me a hand when I need to work." Claire adjusted Sophia's blanket with automatic, efficient movements. But yes, basically alone. Guilt hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. While he was closing multi-million-dollar deals and expanding his business to 3 new countries, Claire was dealing with morning sickness, doctor's appointments, and the risks of a multiple pregnancy. While he was attending corporate dinners and international conferences, she was spending sleepless nights with 3 newborn babies. While he was worrying about profit margins and market share, she was figuring out how to change 3 diapers simultaneously and get 3 babies to sleep at the same time. "Why didn't you insist?" he asked, his voice thick with an emotion he couldn't identify. "Why didn't you force me to stop and listen?" Claire smiled, but there was no joy in it. It was the smile of someone who had learned to be strong when she had no other choice. "Because I remembered who you are, Ryan, who you've always been. You don't stop for anything that isn't directly related to work, and I wasn't going to beg you to want to be a father to your own children." The words cut deep. Ryan knew they were true, which made them even more painful. How many times had Claire tried to start conversations about children, about the future, about the life they could build together, only to be interrupted by an urgent call, an important email, a trip that couldn't be postponed? "Your Honor," Henry finally managed to articulate, "we'd like to request a suspension of the hearing so my client can process this information and reorganize his legal priorities. Of course, I'll reschedule for next week. That should give you enough time to resolve the issues of custody, child support, and acknowledgement of paternity." Judge Mendoza stood up, signaling the end of the session. "Ms. Davis, Mr. Miller has the right to request a DNA test if he wishes to contest paternity." "That won't be necessary," Ryan said quickly, still staring at the babies. "They're my children. Anyone can see that." It was impossible to deny. Besides the characteristic green eyes, Gabriel had the family's chin, Sophia had the strong eyebrows that appeared in all the old Miller family photos, and Ben had that serious expression that Ryan recognized from his own childhood pictures. When everyone left the hearing room, Ryan felt lost in a way he had never experienced before. In the courthouse hallway, he watched Claire reorganize the babies in the stroller with impressive efficiency. Every move she made revealed months of practice, an established routine, a life completely structured around these 3 children he didn't even know existed. "Claire, I need to talk to you. I need to understand." She paused, considering. "You have 15 minutes before I need to be home for their feeding. They're on a very strict schedule." "Schedule," he repeated, as if the word were foreign. "Of course. Babies need a schedule." They found a small cafe near the courthouse, where Claire managed to position the triple stroller so she could constantly watch all 3 children. Ryan ordered a strong espresso and watched as she checked diapers, adjusted their clothes, and murmured soft words whenever one of the babies got fussy. "How do you do it?" he finally asked. 3 babies, work, the house. How does anyone do this alone?" "You learn. You don't have a choice." Claire picked up Gabriel when he started to whimper. "In the first few months I thought I was going to lose my mind. I never slept more than 2 hours at a time. I was always covered in spit-up. I'd forget to eat. But they needed me, so I found strength I didn't even know I had." Ryan watched her rock Gabriel with natural automatic movements, humming a soft song until he calmed down. There was an intimacy there that completely excluded him, a language developed between mother and child that he would never learn. "You said you work as a translator." "Freelance. I translate technical documents, business contracts, sometimes movie scripts. I work during their naps, and after they go to sleep at night. It doesn't pay as much as a full-time job, but it gives me flexibility." "And financially, are you managing?" Claire hesitated. "I'm getting by. The spousal support you deposited during the separation helped a lot, especially in the first few months when I could barely work. But raising 3 babies is expensive, Ryan. Very expensive." The support payments. Ryan had set a generous amount, or so he thought at the time, so Claire could get back on her feet after the separation. He never imagined the money was supporting 3 children he didn't even know existed. "I need to meet them," he said suddenly, surprising himself. "I need to be present, to be involved." Claire studied him carefully, as if trying to discern his true intentions. "Ryan, are you sure about this? This isn't a whim, it's not guilt, it's not an impulse. Being a father to triplets is a huge, constant responsibility that will last for at least the next 20 years. Are you prepared to completely change your life?" The question hit him hard. Was he prepared? His routine was rigid, predictable. Wake up at 5:30, work out in his building's private gym, breakfast while reading financial reports, work from 8 to 8, business dinners or more, work late into the night. Weekends were for work trips or planning the week ahead. There was no room for unpredictability, for demands that couldn't be scheduled in advance, for tiny human beings who didn't understand mergers and acquisitions. But when he looked again at the 3 babies, Gabriel now sleeping peacefully in Claire's arms, Sophia stirring dreamily in the stroller, Ben watching the cafe's activity with intense curiosity, Ryan felt something he couldn't name. It was stronger than guilt, deeper than responsibility. "I want to try," he said finally. "I don't know how. I don't know if I can, but I want to try." Claire lived in a 4-story walk-up in Astoria, with walls that let through both the sounds of the neighbors and the smell of various spices that mingled in the hallway. Ryan climbed the 2 flights of stairs, carrying grocery bags that Claire had mentioned she needed, feeling completely out of place in an environment that contrasted sharply with the penthouse apartment in Tribeca where he lived. Her apartment was small but organized with military precision. The living room served as both a lounge and an office, with a beige sofa that was already showing signs of wear, a round wooden table with neat piles of translation documents, and 3 baby bouncers lined up near the window. What impressed Ryan the most was the sheer quantity of items related to the triplets. A mountain of diapers arranged in baskets, dozens of bottles in various stages of being cleaned, tiny clothes hanging on a makeshift line in the laundry area, and colorful toys scattered in the corners in a way that seemed chaotic, but which Ryan soon realized followed a specific logic. "They each have their preferences," Claire explained, noticing his confused look at the toys. "Gabriel likes different textures, so his toys are always in this blue basket. Sophia is soothed by soft sounds, so hers are musical and in the pink basket. Ben prefers things he can watch and manipulate, so his are more structured and in the green one." It was a science she had developed over 4 months of constant observation, trial and error, and sleepless nights trying to figure out why one cried more than the others, why 2 slept well, while the 3rd was awake for hours. Ryan realized there was a complexity to this small world he had never imagined. "Can I help with anything?" he offered, still holding the bags as if he didn't know what to do with them. "You can put those in the kitchen, but be quiet. They just fell asleep for their afternoon nap, which lasts exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes. If they wake up early, it will throw off the entire routine for the rest of the day." Ryan moved through the kitchen as if he were disarming a bomb. Every movement was calculated to make the least amount of noise possible. As he organized the items he had brought, baby formula, diapers, cleaning supplies, some food Claire had mentioned, he observed the meticulous organization. 3 shelves in the refrigerator were dedicated exclusively to prepared bottles. A whiteboard on the wall listed feeding times, diaper changes, and medication schedules, with notes made in colored markers for each baby. "This is like a military operation," he murmured, impressed. "It's survival," Claire corrected, appearing in the kitchen with a baby monitor in her hand. "If you don't organize, you can't keep up. With 3, there's no room for improvisation." Over the next week, Ryan started showing up at Claire's apartment every day after work. At first, his visits were awkward and hesitant. He always arrived carrying something: flowers for Claire, imported toys for the babies, food from expensive restaurants, as if trying to compensate for months of absence with grand gestures. "Ryan, they don't eat Thai food," Claire said patiently, the 3rd time he arrived with dinner from a fancy restaurant. "And I don't have time to eat something that requires a fork and knife when I have to feed 3 babies at the same time." He gradually learned that the triplets' world was made of small details and inflexible routines. Gabriel always woke up 20 minutes before his siblings and needed 5 minutes of being held before he would take his bottle. Sophia would only calm down if you hummed a specific song a tune Claire had made up that made no sense to anyone but her. Ben watched everything with impressive seriousness and only smiled when you made a funny face, a discovery Ryan made by accident that became the first moment of real connection between them. "He smiled at me," Ryan said in amazement on the Thursday of the second week, holding Ben with extreme care. "He likes you," Claire replied, preparing bottles for the next feeding. "Ben is more observant. He studies people before deciding if he can trust them." Ben's trust became an important milestone. Ryan began to feel less like an intruder and more like, well, he didn't know exactly what he felt like yet, but it was progress. He started to understand that each cry had a different meaning, that Gabriel got fussy when he was hungry, that Sophia had a specific cry when she needed a diaper change, that Ben rarely cried, but when he did, it meant something was really wrong. The changes to Ryan's routine were subtle at first. He cancelled 2 international trips without a detailed explanation to his team, delegated some meetings to Mark, his business partner and friend since college, and started leaving the office at 6 p.m. sharp, something he hadn't done in at least 10 years. "What's going on with you?" Mark asked one Friday when Ryan turned down a dinner with German investors. "Did you get religion? Are you in therapy? Do you have a mistress who demands punctuality?" Ryan hesitated. He hadn't told anyone about the triplets yet. The information felt too big, too complex to be explained casually. "How do you tell your partners, employees and clients that you found out 2 weeks ago that you're the father of 3 babies who are already 4 months old?" "I'm dealing with some personal matters," he said finally. "Personal matters that involve leaving work during business hours?" Mark laughed. "Ryan, do you even know any hours that aren't business hours? You worked on Christmas last year." It was true. Ryan had worked on Christmas, New Year's and his own birthday. Work was what gave his life meaning, what justified his existence. But now there were 3 little people who needed dinner at 6:30, a bath at 7 and a story at 8. And for the first time in decades, Ryan wanted to be present, for something that didn't involve profit or corporate expansion. The first time he tried to bathe one of the babies was an epic disaster. Gabriel, who had been chosen as the guinea pig for being theoretically the calmest, turned a 5-minute bath into a water war that left Ryan soaked from head to toe and the bathroom looking like the scene of a tsunami. "You're being too forceful," Claire instructed, trying not to laugh at his desperate expression. "Babies aren't dishes you need to scrub. It's just warm water, gentle soap, soft movements." "He's so small," Ryan murmured, his hands trembling slightly. "What if I hurt him? What if he slips?" "You won't hurt him. I'm right here. Trust me." Trust. It was another word that was taking on new meaning in Ryan's life. For years, he had only trusted himself, his ability to control variables and predict outcomes. But here was Claire, asking him to trust her, while he held something infinitely more valuable than any contract or investment, a wet, slippery baby who was looking at him with curiosity, not fear. In the 3rd week, Ryan began to understand the true scale of what Claire faced every day. He arrived one Tuesday to find her crying softly in the kitchen, holding Gabriel with Sophia crying in her stroller, and Ben screaming in his bouncer. "What happened?" he asked, panicking. "Nothing specific. It's just too hard sometimes." She wiped her eyes with the back of her free hand. "Gabriel hasn't wanted to eat since yesterday. Sophia has had colic for 3 hours. Ben has a low-grade fever, and I have to deliver a translation by tomorrow morning. But I haven't been able to work for 5 minutes straight since Monday." Ryan looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. Dirty clothes piled up near the washing machine, bottles accumulated in the sink, Claire's laptop open on the living room table with a half-finished document, work papers scattered about that clearly hadn't been touched in hours. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked. "For what? You have important meetings, trips, responsibilities. I chose to raise them alone, remember?" "You didn't choose. I forced you to choose." The realization came out clearer than Ryan expected. "Go finish your work, I'll take care of them." Claire hesitated. "Ryan, you don't understand. It's not just holding them. Gabriel needs a special formula because of his allergy. Sophia has to take colic medicine exactly every 4 hours. Ben needs to be held upright after eating, or he'll throw up everything. And if they all cry at the same time, then you'll teach me, right now. It was the longest night of Ryan's life, 3 hours trying to get Gabriel to take the special formula, calculating dosages of medicine for Sophia, learning the exact position that made Ben comfortable. When he finally managed to get all three to sleep at the same time, a miracle Claire confirmed was rare. It was almost midnight. "You did it," Claire said, emerging from her laptop where she had been working intensively for the last 4 hours. "I don't know how, but you did it." Ryan was exhausted in a way he had never experienced. It wasn't the fatigue of a marathon of meetings or the tension of a difficult negotiation. It was something physical, emotional, that seemed to have drained energy from muscles he didn't know he had. "How do you do this every day?" he asked, collapsing onto the sofa. "Because I have to, because they need me to." Claire sat down next to him, watching the 3 makeshift cribs in the living room where the babies were finally sleeping peacefully. "You get used to the exhaustion. You learn to function on less sleep, less food, less everything. But you also discover that you can love more than you ever thought possible." Ryan looked at his sleeping children and tried to identify what he was feeling. It was responsibility, yes, guilt, definitely. But there was something more, something that grew with each day he spent there. Something that had no name, but made him want to come back the next day and the next and the next. "Claire," he said after a long silence, "I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I'm too late. But I wanted to be more present, not just for a few hours at the end of the day. More." She studied him carefully. "What are you proposing?" "I don't know yet. But I know I want to be a real part of their lives. And yours too, if you'll let me." "Ryan, you need to understand something. You can't be a part-time dad. You can't just show up when it's convenient, when it doesn't interfere with business. They need consistency, real presence, someone who will be here even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when it interferes with everything else you think is important." "I know. You know it intellectually. But have you lived it? Have you woken up 5 times in one night because 3 babies decided to have alternating sleep schedules? Have you lost an important contract because your child had a fever and you couldn't leave their side? Have you ever had to choose between a meeting that could define the future of your company and being there when your child took their first steps?" Ryan was silent. He hadn't lived any of that. He didn't know if he could. But for the first time in a long time, he wanted to find out. "Give me a chance to learn," he said finally. "A chance to be the father they deserve." Claire didn't answer right away. She watched the babies, then watched Ryan, as if weighing the risks and possibilities. "One chance," she said finally, "but with clear conditions. If you start this and give up, if you show up and disappear as you please, you'll hurt not just me, but 3 children who didn't choose to have an absent father. So think carefully, Ryan. Think very carefully about what you're proposing," he thought. For the rest of that night, after Claire went to sleep, and he stayed up watching the triplets in the silence of the small, vibrant apartment, Ryan thought about everything he would have to change, everything he would have to give up, everything he would have to learn. And for the first time in 42 years, he thought that maybe it was worth discovering who he could be when his top priority wasn't work. The opportunity came unexpectedly in an email Claire received on a rainy Thursday morning. A multinational company in Geneva needed a translator specializing in international contracts for a 6-week project that would pay the equivalent of 6 months of her freelance work. It was exactly the kind of opportunity that could definitively establish her career, open doors to international clients, and ensure financial stability for a long time. It was also completely impossible to accept with 3 5-month-old babies. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she told Ryan that night, after the triplets had finally fallen asleep. "The kind of job I've always wanted, with the kind of client that could change everything for my career, but obviously I can't go." Ryan was on the living room floor, assembling a musical mobile he had bought for Sophia. An activity he was discovering was surprisingly relaxing after a day full of tense meetings. In the last 2 months since he had started participating in the children's daily routine, He had developed an unexpected appreciation for simple, concrete tasks that had a visible beginning, middle, and end. "Why not?" he asked, without stopping his work on the mobile. "Ryan, there are 3 babies. I can't take them to another country for 6 weeks, and I can't leave them. You can with me." The words came out naturally, without hesitation, surprising both Ryan and Claire. He stopped assembling the mobile and looked at her. "I'm serious. You can go to Geneva. I'll take care of them." Claire laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of joy. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard something completely absurd. "Ryan, you can barely give one of them a bath without panicking. How are you going to take care of 3 of them for 6 weeks? I'll learn. You can teach me everything I need to know, leave detailed instructions, and I'll manage." "You'll manage?" She shook her head. "They're not plants you can water every now and then. They're 3 tiny human beings who need constant attention, who get sick, who have different personalities, who are my children too." The silence that followed was heavy. Claire stared at Ryan as if trying to determine if he was serious or if he had completely lost his mind. "You're proposing to take care of Gabriel, Sophia, and Ben by yourself for 6 weeks, she said slowly, as if she needed to hear the words to believe them. "I am. You who didn't even know they existed 3 months ago. You who has never spent a whole night alone with them. You who still calls me in a panic when Ben makes a different face." Ryan had to admit her arguments made sense, but there was something bigger at stake. "Claire, you sacrificed your career to take care of them alone because I wasn't here. Now I am. Now you can trust me so you don't have to give up everything." "Trust," she repeated, as if the word were foreign. "I know I haven't proven I deserve your trust yet, but how can I prove it if you never give me the chance?" Claire was silent for several long minutes, looking back and forth between Ryan and the 3 cribs where the babies slept. Ryan could see the conflict in her expression, the clear desire to accept the professional opportunity versus the justified fear of leaving her children with someone who was still learning to be a father. "There would be conditions," she said finally. "Any conditions you want. First, you move in here for the 6 weeks. They need their routine, their familiar environment, their things. Second, my mother comes to check on things every 2 days and has full authority to make any decisions if necessary. Third, at the first sign that you're not handling it, I come back immediately, even if it means losing the job. I accept all of it. You didn't even ask how this will affect your work, your meetings, your commitments." Ryan paused. It was true. He hadn't even thought about it. 6 weeks taking care of 3 babies meant 6 weeks with no travel, no meetings that ran past. Business hours, no flexibility to work late. It meant completely reorganizing his professional life. "I'll figure it out," he said. "Mark can take on more responsibilities. I can work from home when they're sleeping. I can—" "You could fail completely and ruin everything." "I could. But I could also succeed. And you deserve the chance to find out." 2 weeks later, Ryan was at JFK Airport saying goodbye to Claire, who was carrying only a small suitcase and an expression that mixed anxiety, excitement, and absolute terror. "Remember, Gabriel eats every 3 hours, but he'll take it every 2.5 if he's really fussy. Sophia needs her reflux medicine after her bottle, never before. Ben sleeps better on his stomach, but you have to keep an eye on him because he might roll over and—" "Claire," Ryan interrupted gently, "you left 17 pages of typed instructions. You recorded videos explaining every detail of the routine. And your mom is coming over tomorrow to make sure I haven't burned the apartment down. It's going to be okay." She nodded, but he could see she was fighting the instinct to cancel her trip and run back home. "If anything goes wrong, I'll call you, I promise. If they get sick, I'll take them to the pediatrician and call you. If you can't get them to sleep, I'll call you and you can coach me over the phone." Claire took a deep breath. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. She gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, a gesture more automatic than romantic, grabbed her suitcase and headed for the boarding gate without looking back. Ryan watched until she disappeared, then went home to face the biggest challenge of his life. The first night was a nightmare. Gabriel woke up at 2. In the morning, crying with an intensity Ryan had never witnessed. All the techniques Claire had taught him, holding, singing, rocking, feeding, failed. His crying woke up Sophia, who started crying too. Sophia's crying woke up Ben, who became so agitated that Ryan thought something was seriously wrong. At 4 in the morning, exhausted and desperate, Ryan called Claire. "Hello?" Her voice was alert, despite the time difference. "Claire, I don't know what to do. They won't stop crying, they won't take their bottles, they don't want to be held, and I'm sure I'm doing everything wrong." "Calm down. Take a deep breath and tell me exactly what's happening." Ryan explained the sequence of events, the desperation in his voice growing with every sentence. Claire listened patiently, asking specific questions about what he had tried, in what order, and for how long. "Gabriel sometimes has night terrors," she explained. "Not real nightmares, but something similar. When that happens, you need to turn on the lights, make him realize where he is, and talk to him in a normal voice, not a whisper. Sophia is crying because she sensed Gabriel's agitation, so you need to physically separate them until he calms down. Ben, he's probably hungry. He eats more when he's stressed." Ryan followed her instructions to the letter. It took almost 2 hours, but he finally managed to calm all 3 of them down. When they were finally asleep again, he collapsed on the sofa, more tired than he had ever felt. At 5:30, Sophia woke up wanting her bottle. Normal routine, normal time, but Ryan felt as if he had just fallen asleep. In the following days, a pattern emerged. During the day, he managed to maintain a reasonably functional routine, but the nights were unpredictable and exhausting. The first week was pure survival. Ryan cancelled all his in-person meetings, delegated non-urgent decisions to Mark, and discovered what it was like to work on a laptop while rocking a baby and watching 2 others in their bouncers. He developed skills he never imagined he'd need. Preparing a bottle with one hand, changing a diaper in the dark without waking the others, and identifying different types of cries by their sound. Claire's mother, Irene, showed up religiously every 2 days as agreed. On her first few visits, she clearly expected to find a disaster, prepared to call Claire and tell her to come home immediately, but gradually her visits became more relaxed, more collaborative. "You're learning," she said in the second week, watching Ryan bathe Sophia with movements that were no longer hesitant. "At first, I thought you'd last 3 days before giving up." "I thought so too," Ryan admitted. "But they need me. It's different from anything I've ever felt." That's what it means to be a father. It's not when you want to be, it's when they need you to be. The physical transformation of the apartment was gradual but evident. Ryan started by bringing a few basic items: a better laptop to work on during naps, a more comfortable chair for the late nights, his own toiletries. Then came more permanent changes: a larger TV so he could work while watching the babies, an extra crib so he didn't have to improvise every day, proper kitchen utensils for preparing baby food. But the deepest changes were in him. Ryan discovered he could function on far less sleep than he'd imagined. He discovered that a video conference could be just as productive as an in-person meeting, especially when you had a real motivation to finish quickly. He discovered that watching Ben discover his own hands, or seeing Sophia smile when she woke up, were moments worth more than any professional success he had ever experienced. The first real scare happened in the 3rd week. Gabriel developed a high fever on a Tuesday morning, quickly going from normal to frighteningly hot and listless. Ryan tried all the techniques Claire had taught him for low-grade fevers, but nothing worked. By 10 in the morning, he was rushing to the emergency room with Gabriel in his arms and Sophia and Ben in a double stroller, a desperate race that filled him with more terror than any business crisis ever had. "It's an ear infection," the pediatrician explained after examining Gabriel. "Common in babies, nothing serious, but he needs antibiotics. He'll be fine." The relief was so intense that Ryan had to sit down. While waiting for the prescription, he called Claire. "How do you not go crazy with worry?" he asked. 2 hours ago he was playing normally. Now he's in the hospital with a 102-degree fever. "You do go crazy. Every mother does. But you learn that you can feel panic and still function, still make the right decisions." Her voice was warmer than it had been in months. "And you made the right decision, Ryan. You took him to the doctor at the right time. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared. Fear is part of it. It shows you care." That night, as he gave Gabriel his antibiotic, and watched the other two play peacefully on the living room rug, Ryan realized something fundamental had changed in him. The company, the meetings, the multi-million-dollar contracts, all of it still existed, was still important, but it had ceased to be the only thing that defined who he was. The fourth week brought an unexpected visit. The hospital's social worker, following standard protocol for cases where a single father shows up with small babies, made a routine visit to check on their living conditions. Ryan panicked when the woman rang the doorbell on a Thursday afternoon. "Mr. Miller, I'm Ms. Ortiz from Social Services. I need to talk to you about Gabriel, Sophia, and Ben." Ryan welcomed her into the apartment, which was, he admitted to himself, in the organized chaos typical of someone caring for 3 infants. Toys were scattered, baby clothes were drying, bottles were in various stages of being cleaned, and the 3 babies were right in the middle of their fussiest time of day. "You care for them by yourself?" she asked, taking notes on a clipboard. "Their mother is traveling for work, temporarily. And do you have experience with childcare?" Ryan hesitated. "I'm learning." For the next hour, Ms. Ortiz asked detailed questions about their routine, feeding, medical care, and living conditions. Ryan answered as honestly as he could, demonstrating his knowledge of each baby's individual needs, showing her the feeding and medication logs he kept, and explaining the safety adaptations he had made. To the apartment. "Do you work, sir?" she asked. "I'm a businessman, but I've significantly reduced my commitments to care for them. Do you plan to resume your previous routine when their mother returns?" The question caught him off guard. Ryan looked at Gabriel sleeping in his arms, at Sophia exploring a musical toy, at Ben watching everything with his characteristic seriousness. "No," he said finally. "I don't. I've discovered that being a father is more important than I ever imagined." Ms. Ortiz smiled for the first time. "That's the answer I was hoping to hear." The 5th week was marked by the first time Ryan managed to get all 3 babies to sleep through the night. When he realized it was 6 in the morning and none of them had cried since 10 the previous night, he panicked, thinking something was wrong. He checked each crib 3 times before accepting that he had succeeded. He called Claire immediately. "They slept through the night," he said, almost in disbelief. "All 3 of them." "All 3, from 10 to 6. Is that normal?" Claire laughed, a genuinely joyful sound. "Ryan, in the 6 months I've been taking care of them, that has happened exactly twice. You are officially and unofficially lucky. Or maybe they're just getting used to me. Maybe they are." In the 6th week, Ryan realized he didn't want Claire to come back. Not because he didn't want to see her, but because he had built something there, a routine, a connection, a life that worked in a way he had never experienced. The small apartment in Astoria had become more of a home than the luxurious penthouse that was technically his house. When he finally went to pick Claire up at the airport, he brought all 3 babies with him. They had grown noticeably in the 6 weeks, more alert, more interactive, more connected to him in ways he couldn't explain. "They're different," Claire said as soon as she saw her children. "Bigger. More, I don't know. Secure?" "They know me now," Ryan said, "and I know them. For real." During the drive back to Astoria, Claire watched Ryan interact with the children with a naturalness she hadn't seen before. He anticipated their needs, knew exactly what tone of voice to use with each one, and recognized the signs that Gabriel was getting hungry or that Sophia needed to change position. "How was work?" he asked. "Incredible, challenging, well-paid, exactly the kind of opportunity I needed." She paused. "They offered me a permanent contract." Ryan almost slammed on the brakes. "Permanent?" 6 months a year in Geneva, 6 months in the US. Excellent salary, amazing benefits, a chance to work with the best in my field." "And you're thinking about accepting?" "I was, before I saw them just now." Claire looked at the babies, then at Ryan. "They need stability, and I need to know I'm not raising them alone anymore." Ryan understood what she wasn't saying explicitly. The next decisions couldn't be made individually. They were a family now, with all the complicated and wonderful things that implied. The formal offer arrived by email 3 days after Claire's return. Ryan was in her apartment, which he now considered more of a home than his own penthouse, feeding Gabriel when he heard her sigh from the table where she was working on her laptop. "It's here," she said simply. Ryan didn't need to ask what had arrived. For the past 3 days, they had carefully avoided the topic of the Geneva offer, as if not talking about it might make it disappear. But they both knew a decision had to be made. "Can I see it?" he asked. Claire turned the laptop screen toward him. The contract was impressive, even for someone accustomed to large figures. The annual salary was equivalent to what she earned in 3 years of freelance work in the States. The benefits included housing, education for dependents, international health insurance, and a relocation clause that covered all moving expenses. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Ryan said after reading it all. "The kind that only comes around once." "I know. You should take it." Claire looked at him, in surprise. "What do you mean?" Ryan adjusted Gabriel in his arms, choosing his words carefully. "You're brilliant, Claire. You always have been. You deserve to work with the best. You deserve international recognition. You deserve everything this offer entails. If you don't accept because of the triplets, you'll end up regretting it. And if you regret it, you'll end up blaming them. And me. It's not that simple." "It is." Ryan stood up, placing Gabriel in his stroller next to his siblings. "We'll go with you." The silence that followed was thick. Claire stared at Ryan as if he had just suggested they fly to the moon. "What do you mean we'll go with you?" "Me, Gabriel, Sophia, and Ben. We'll go to Geneva. You take the job, and I'll reorganize my business to work from there. The kids will grow up bilingual, have access to an international education, experiences they would never have here. Ryan, are you proposing to move to another country, abandon your business here, and reorganize your entire life for my job?" "Not for your job, for our family." The word family hung in the air between them. It was the first time Ryan had used it to refer to the 4 of them, him, Claire, and the triplets, and from the look on her face, Claire realized it too. "Your company is based in the US, she said slowly. "Your main clients, your partners, your entire network, you've spent 20 years building that. And I can keep building it from anywhere." Ryan pulled up a chair and sat in front of her. "Claire, over the last 6 weeks, I discovered that nothing I've built professionally has any value if it means being away from my children and from you." "From me?" "You, us." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know exactly how to define what we are now. We're not married anymore, but we're more than ex-spouses. We're parents together. We're partners. We're a team. And I don't want that to end." Claire looked down at her hands. "Ryan, you're confusing gratitude with love. You're grateful that I gave you 3 children, that I let you get to know them, that I let you take care of them alone. But that's not a foundation for rebuilding a relationship. It's not gratitude." Ryan leaned forward, forcing her to meet his eyes. "It's recognition. Recognition that you were always the best part of my life. I was just too busy to see it. Recognition that our family didn't end when we separated. It just became incomplete. Our family ended when you chose work over being present for it. And now I'm choosing family over work." Claire shook her head. "You're choosing it because you've discovered that being a father feels good. Because the triplets are adorable and being with them makes you happy. But what about when they get older and start causing trouble? What about when they're teenagers and don't want your attention anymore? What about when work becomes challenging and exciting again?" The question was fair, and Ryan knew it. How could he prove he had fundamentally changed when the change was so recent? "I can't prove it with words," he said finally. "I can only prove it with time and consistency, but I'm asking you for a chance to prove it." Claire was silent for several long minutes, looking back and forth between Ryan and the triplets playing peacefully in their stroller. "And what if I say no?" she asked finally. "What if I decide to accept the offer and go alone?" The question hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. The possibility of losing daily contact with his children, of going back to being a weekend and holiday dad, of watching them grow up through photos and video calls, was terrifying. "Then I would respect your decision," he said, his voice more controlled than he felt. "But I would fight for my rights as a father. Not legally, not through lawyers and lawsuits, but I would be there whenever possible. I would make sure to be a part of everything I could. I would show them that even from a distance they can count on me. And us? You and me. Ryan took a deep breath. I think I'll always love you, Claire. I don't know if you still love me, or if you could ever love me again. But on my end, that never changed. It just became clearer, more mature. You love me now because I'm the mother of your children. I love you now because you are who you've always been. Intelligent, strong, determined, generous. The difference is that now I have the emotional maturity to value that. Before I saw you as a compliment to my life. Now I see you as the person I want to share my life with. Claire got up and began to pace the small room, processing his words. Ryan watched her, trying to read the expressions that crossed her face. I need time to think, she said finally. How much time? A week. They gave me a week to respond. During that week, Ryan lived in a state of constant anxiety that he tried to hide so as not to influence Claire's decision. He maintained his normal routine with the triplets, worked from home whenever possible, and made sure to be present for every meal, every bath, every playtime. But internally he was preparing for any outcome. He had a long talk with Mark about the possibility of expanding the company's operations to Europe, an idea they had vaguely discussed in the past, but which now had a real sense of urgency. It's feasible, Mark concluded after analyzing the numbers. It'll require a heavy initial investment, a lot of restructuring, and probably 2 years before it starts turning a real profit. But it's feasible. The question is, are you sure you want to do this for a woman? It's not for a woman, Ryan corrected. It's for my family. The family you walked out on 2 years ago. The family I didn't know how to value 2 years ago, but now I know it's more important than any business. Mark studied his friend's face. You've changed, Ryan, drastically. In 6 months you've become a different person. Not different. More complete. Claire's answer came on a Friday night, after the triplets had finally fallen asleep after a particularly hectic day. Ryan was washing bottles in the kitchen when she appeared in the doorway, holding 2 envelopes. I've made a decision, she said. Ryan dried his hands on a dish towel, his heart racing. And? I'm going to turn down the offer. The disappointment was immediate and intense. Claire, no. You can't give this up because of... Let me finish. She held up a hand to stop him. I'm turning down their offer because I negotiated something better. Ryan looked at her, confused. What do you mean? I talked to them about the possibility of working remotely, with occasional trips for in-person meetings. I offered a proportional salary reduction in exchange for location flexibility. Claire smiled for the first time in a week. They accepted. I'll make 70% of the original salary, but I can work from New York with 3 trips to Geneva a year. That's incredible. But there's a condition. Ryan waited. To officially accept, I need to be legally married. It's about visa issues, family benefits, international regulations. Claire held out one of the envelopes to him. So the question is, do you want to marry me again? Ryan looked at the envelope without taking it. Marry for professional reasons? No. Claire moved closer to him. Marry because over the last 6 months, we've discovered we're better together than apart. Marry because I want to rebuild our family consciously, maturely, based on what really matters. And what really matters? Being present, sharing responsibilities, supporting each other's dreams, raising our children together, for real. She paused, and falling in love again, slowly, without rushing, building something solid. Ryan finally took the envelope. Inside was a new birth certificate, a document officially recognizing Gabriel, Sophia, and Ben as the children of Ryan Miller and Claire Davis Miller. Their names were printed side by side, as parents, as a family. You changed your name back? He asked, noticing her last name. I never changed it. Not even when we separated, I couldn't. Claire smiled sheepishly. I guess I always knew it wasn't really over. Ryan looked at the document, then at Claire, then toward the living room where 3 babies slept peacefully. unaware that their parents were redefining all of their futures. "So," he said slowly, "you're proposing to me?" "I am. With 3 small children, huge responsibilities, career changes, a complete life overhaul." "Exactly because of all that." Ryan didn't hesitate. "Yes." They kissed for the first time in almost a year, slowly, carefully, as if they were rediscovering how to do it. It wasn't the desperate kiss of a dramatic reconciliation, but something more precious, the kiss of 2 people who had consciously chosen to be together. "There's one more thing," Claire said when they parted. "The second envelope." Ryan opened the second envelope and found architectural plans for a house, a large house with 4 bedrooms, an office, a spacious backyard, and a 2-car garage, a family home. "I found it in Westchester. Good location, enough space for all of us to grow, a yard for the kids to play in when they're older." Claire pointed to the drawn rooms. "This would be our room, these 3 would be for the triplets when they're bigger, this office would be yours when you need to work from home, and this one would be mine. You already bought the house. I made a down payment. But the mortgage depends on proving a stable family income." She smiled. "Which means it depends on us being officially married." Ryan laughed, realizing how meticulously Claire had planned everything. "You're not leaving me much room to say no." "Do you want to say no?" He looked at the plans again, imagining the triplets running through the yard, imagining Sunday mornings having breakfast in the spacious kitchen, imagining a future that was both completely different from what he had planned and exactly what he now realized he had always wanted. "No," he said. "I definitely don't want to say no. So that's it. We're going to rebuild our family. Better than the first time," Ryan added. "Much better, because now we know what's really important." That night, after they had finalized the practical details, the date at the city clerk's office, the moving schedule, the reorganization of their jobs, Ryan lay awake watching Claire sleep beside him for the first time in over a year. On the other side of the wall, he could hear the soft sounds of the triplets sleeping. For the first time in decades, Ryan fell asleep without worrying about the next day's meetings, pending reports, or corporate growth strategies. His biggest concern was whether Gabriel would wake up thirsty in the middle of the night, if Sophia would need another blanket, if Ben would keep sleeping on his stomach. It was the best insomnia of his life. The wedding took place on a Saturday afternoon at the city clerk's office in the West Village, a simple and intimate ceremony that perfectly reflected who they had become. Ryan wore a navy blue suit without a tie. Claire wore a yellow midi dress that matched her practical and cheerful personality, and the triplets were dressed in matching outfits that Irene had insisted on sewing herself. Gabriel, now 8 months old, spent the ceremony trying to grab the pen the clerk was using to fill out the documents. Sophia had discovered she could make funny noises with her tongue and decided to demonstrate this skill throughout the reading of the vows. Ben watched, everything with his characteristic seriousness, but would smile whenever someone made a face at him, a skill Ryan had refined over the past few months. "Do you, Ryan and Claire, take each other as husband and wife?" the clerk asked. "We do," they answered together, but their voices were nearly drowned out by the sound Sophia was making with her tongue and the laughter it provoked in Gabriel. "Then, by the authority vested in me by the law, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The kiss was interrupted by Ben, who decided that was the perfect moment to cry and demand attention. Ryan and Claire broke apart laughing, and Ryan immediately picked up Ben while Claire wrangled Gabriel and Sophia. "Welcome to our life," Claire said to Ryan, smiling. "The best life I could ever imagine," he replied. The move to the house in Westchester happened 2 weeks after the wedding. It was a bright, spacious house with large windows that let in plenty of natural light, a backyard where Ryan already pictured the triplets playing when they were older, and enough room for everyone to have their own space when needed. The process of settling 3 babies into a new house was more complex than any corporate move Ryan had ever managed. Every room had to be adapted to the triplets' specific needs: outlet covers, safety latches on cabinets, gates on the stairs, padded corners on sharp edges. The house gradually transformed from an elegant adult space into a functional and welcoming family home. "It's very different from your penthouse," Claire observed one morning, finding Ryan in the backyard installing a playground set he had ordered in anticipation of the coming years. "Better than the penthouse," Ryan replied, adjusting one of the swings. "The penthouse was impressive, but this is a home." The routine they developed in the new house was a complex but harmonious dance. Ryan had completely restructured his professional schedule. Meetings only happened between 9 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. Trips never lasted more than 3 consecutive days, and he maintained a strict policy of not taking work calls during the triplets' bath and dinner time. Claire flourished in her new job. The international projects challenged her skills in a way she hadn't experienced in years, and the flexibility of working from home allowed her to maintain a constant presence in the children's lives. The office she had planned became her professional sanctuary, where she could focus on complex translations while listening to the sounds of the triplets playing or sleeping on the baby monitor. Their relationship evolved consciously and gradually. It wasn't the impulsive passion of their first marriage, but something more solid and profound. They talked more, shared decisions about everything, supported each other's professional projects, and rediscovered physical intimacy with the patience of people who knew they had time. "It's strange," Claire commented one night, after they had finally managed to get all 3 to sleep at the same time, "how it feels like we're the same people but completely different." "We're the same people who finally grew up," Ryan answered, pulling her closer on the living room sofa, "and who learned what really matters." The triplets were developing impressively. Gabriel revealed a curious and adventurous personality, always trying to explore new corners of the house, always wanting to touch things he shouldn't. Sophia was sociable and expressive, smiling at anyone who came near, loving music and responding to different rhythms with body movements. Ben maintained his characteristic seriousness, but showed signs of early intelligence, observing everything with intense focus, and preferring toys that required reasoning. "They're 3 completely different people," Ryan observed one Sunday morning, watching the 3 of them play in the yard. "How is it possible that they're the same age, have the same genes, the same upbringing, and are so unique?" "That's the magic of human personality," Claire replied. "Each one is born with their own essence. Our job is to nurture that essence, not mold it." The triplets' first birthday was celebrated with a party in the backyard of the new house. It was a simple but joyful celebration, with close family, a few friends, and decorations that weren't meant to impress anyone but the 3 children who were the center of attention. Ryan looked around during the party and felt a deep satisfaction that no business success had ever provided. "Next year they'll be running all over the place," Mark commented, watching Gabriel try to stand up on his own for the 10th time, "and you'll be running after them." "I can't wait," Ryan replied, and he realized it was completely true. Life continued in a predictable and happy routine until on a Tuesday morning, when the triplets were 14 months old, the doorbell rang at 7 a.m. Ryan was making coffee while Claire was giving Sophia her morning bottle, and they were both confused as to who could be visiting so early. Ryan opened the door and found no one. He was about to close it when he noticed a small basket on the doormat, covered with a light blue blanket. Inside the basket, a newborn baby was sleeping peacefully, with an envelope pinned to the blanket. "Claire," he called, his voice strange. "Come here, please." Claire appeared carrying Sophia, followed by Gabriel and Ben, who were learning to walk and always trailed, their parents around the house. "Oh my God," she murmured, looking at the basket. "It's a baby." Ryan carefully took the envelope so as not to wake the child. The letter was handwritten in a delicate feminine script. "Please take care of her. Her name is Isabella. She was born 3 days ago. I can't raise her, but I know you are a good family. I saw you at the park with your triplets. You truly love your children. Please, love her too." There was no signature, no contact information, just a desperate plea from parents they didn't know, but who had apparently watched Ryan and Claire with the triplets and made an unimaginable decision. "What do we do?" Claire asked, still staring at the baby sleeping placidly in the basket. Ryan looked at the triplets, who had gathered around the basket with typical toddler curiosity. Gabriel was trying to touch the baby's foot, Sophia was making soft, cooing sounds as if talking to the newcomer, and Ben was observing everything with his characteristic seriousness, but with an expression that seemed approving. "We call social services," Ryan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Of course," Claire agreed, but also without conviction. They stood there for several minutes looking at Isabella, who began to stir and make small sounds indicating she would soon wake up. "She's going to be hungry," Claire said finally. "Newborns eat every 2 or 3 hours." "We have formula," Ryan noted, "left over from the triplets. And we have a crib and clothes and experience with newborns." They looked at each other, communicating without words what they were both thinking. Isabella chose that moment to open her eyes, dark, alert eyes that scanned each face around the basket, as if she were formally introducing herself. "Hi, Isabella," Claire said softly, lifting the baby into her arms. "Welcome to the craziest family in New York." Ryan laughed, realizing the decision had been made without any formal discussion, simply because it was the only decision that made sense for the people they had become. "4 kids," he said, testing the words. "We have 4 kids." "Unofficially for now," Claire corrected. "Legally, it's going to be a long process. But it's real. She's ours now." The following months were a whirlwind of legal procedures, visits from social workers, adoption paperwork, and the complete reorganization of their family routine to include a newborn baby in addition to 3 toddlers who were in a particularly active and demanding phase. Isabella integrated into the family with surprising ease. The triplets accepted her readily, as if they had always known the family wasn't complete. Gabriel liked to make funny faces at her and laugh when she tried to imitate him. Sophia would hum the same songs Claire had invented for her whenever Isabella cried. Ben watched over his baby sister with visible protectiveness, always staying close when unfamiliar adults came to the house for official visits. "It's like they understand she needs special care," Claire observed one afternoon, watching Gabriel bring a toy to Isabella when she started to whimper. "Maybe they do," Ryan replied. "Kids are sometimes wiser about family than adults are." Isabella's official adoption was finalized when she was 6 months old, and the triplets were 2. The hearing was a joyful formality, with the judge commenting that she rarely saw a family so clearly destined to be together. "Are you sure you want to take on the responsibility of 4 children under the age of 3? She asked with a smile. "Absolutely sure," Ryan and Claire answered simultaneously, looking at their 4 children who were miraculously behaving like angels during the official hearing. The morning after the adoption was finalized, Ryan woke up before everyone else and went to check on each of the children. Gabriel was sleeping on his stomach with his bottom in the air, a position he had favored since he was a baby. Sophia was hugging a teddy bear and smiling in her sleep. Ben was sleeping in the perfectly symmetrical position he had maintained since he was a newborn. Isabella was waving her tiny arms in the air as if conducting an invisible orchestra. 4 children, 4 personalities, 4 futures to nurture and protect. Ryan sat in the chair between the children's rooms and tried to process the complete transformation his life had undergone in 2 years. From a workaholic businessman who barely knew his own wife to a father of 4, who considered work just one of life's many responsibilities. From a man who measured success in bank figures to a man who measured success in breakfast laughter and bedtime hugs. "Can't sleep?" Claire appeared in the hallway wearing a robe, her hair messy. "Just thinking," he replied, "about how we got here." "It's been a long road," she agreed, perching on the arm of his chair. "The best road of my life." Claire kissed the top of his head. "Of our lives." They sat there in the silence of the sleeping house, listening to the soft sounds of their 4 children, mentally planning the chaotic breakfast that awaited them in a few hours, anticipating the challenges and joys of the years to come. "Do you have any regrets?" Claire asked softly. "About changing everything?" Ryan considered the question. 2 years ago, his biggest concern was expanding his hotel chain to Argentina. Now his biggest concern was teaching 4 small children to share their toys without fighting. 2 years ago, his schedule was dictated by business opportunities. Now it was dictated by nap times and pediatrician appointments. "I regret that it took me so long to change," he said finally. I regret that I almost lost all of this because I didn't know what really mattered. But you didn't lose it. No. I got a second chance. Not everyone gets one. From one of the rooms came a soft cry. Isabella waking up for her middle-of-the-night feeding. Ryan stood up automatically, a gesture that had become instinct over the past few months. I'll go, Claire offered. We'll go, Ryan corrected. Together. They went into Isabella's room, where she was waving her little arms and making the sounds that meant she was hungry but not yet fully awake. Ryan picked her up while Claire prepared the bottle, a routine they performed with the perfect synchronization developed over months of practice. Hi, Princess, Ryan murmured to Isabella, who stopped whimpering as soon as she recognized his voice. Daddy's here. Daddy. The word still surprised him sometimes. Daddy to Gabriel, Sophia, Ben, and Isabella. Husband to Claire. A man whose entire life had been reorganized around love, responsibility, and presence. As he fed Isabella in the rocking chair in her room, Ryan looked out the window at the backyard, where a playground awaited the children's waking, where small bicycles would soon be needed, where years of games, birthday parties, and family memories would unfold. Thank you, he said quietly to Claire, who was organizing clothes in the dresser. For what? For giving me the chance to be who I should have been from the start. You gave yourself the chance, I just didn't close the door completely. Best decision you ever made? Claire smiled, looking at Isabella drinking her bottle peacefully in Ryan's arms. Second best. The first was agreeing to marry you again. And the third. That's still to come. With 4 small children, there's always something surprising on the horizon. Ryan chuckled softly, careful not to wake Isabella. I can't wait to see what's next. And it was true. For the first time in his life, Ryan Miller was more excited about his personal future than his professional one, more interested in discovering what kind of people his children would become than what kind of profits his company would generate, more invested in building family memories than in building a business empire. When Isabella finished her bottle and fell back asleep, Ryan and Claire stayed in her room for a few more minutes, simply watching their youngest daughter sleep and listening to the soft sounds of their other 3 children in the rooms next door. A family that had almost destroyed itself had rebuilt itself stronger. A man who had almost lost everything had discovered what was truly worth having. A woman who had almost given up on love had found a true partner. And 4 children. Had parents who finally understood that family isn't what you plan, but what you choose to build every single day, with presence, patience, and unconditional love. It was, definitively, the best possible ending for a story that began with a divorce in a courthouse and ended with 4 children sleeping safely in a house full of love.